everybody. Welcome to day 144 of the One Year Bible. My name is Jesi.
I'm Amber.
We're glad you're here. We are going to be talking about, we've got a lot of passages to get through today.
Yes, we do.
First of all, Amber, how many times have you read through the One Year Bible?
It's my first time.
Okay.
So it's very exciting.
Good.
It's been an awesome journey.
So you're going to have unique perspectives. That's going to be good. Okay. And let's jump in. We've got some old, some new, some young.
Yep.
Kidding. So let's talk about 2 Samuel 4.
Yes.
Old Testament. So what were your observations?
So I just thought that this chapter was very interesting because, we just had the death of Abner.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just kind of interesting because, it talks about how I'm just going to call him Ish.
Yep.
It's
Ish.
easy. How he is, he lost all of his courage and how all of Israel became paralyzed. And I just thought that was really interesting because it just was odd as to why he would feel this way. So I went on Google and just kind of got a little bit more of a insight as to why he would feel this way. And it basically was saying how, he worried that they were coming after him, that David was like, hey, you're next. And he thought that this was his time to be killed. And that basically David was making way for his family and getting rid of Saul's family. So I just thought that was kind of interesting as to, how this all played out. And then, we talk about it actually happens because these two brothers that were a part of Saul's family battle group, I guess, is if
they
you
were
want to call it.
captains of Ish's raiding party.
Yeah. And they were thinking to themselves like, hey, we're going to get on David's good side. And so we feel that he needs Ish and so dead. And so we're going to do it. And it was just kind of interesting how it turns and David's like, nope, that was not okay.
Yeah. Yes. So it was interesting to note that these two guys were from the tribe of Benjamin. And so it was Saul's family. And so here they're murdering, members of their own tribe, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And so that did not end well for them.
No, it did not.
And so,
yeah, it was definitely kind of interesting the way, David came at them and was like, do you think that was okay? Do you think that's what I wanted? Because you're wrong. And so I just thought it was kind of interesting how they disregarded their loyalty and went to this new guy.
They made an assumption.
Exactly.
And it was unfortunately the wrong assumption.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Well, 2 Samuel 5, we move into David being made king.
Yes.
Talk about some of your observations from this.
So I thought it was just kind of interesting because they talk about how David essentially was always the guy in command. It's almost as if like the Wizard of Oz, don't trust the guy behind the curtain. It was as if they were saying, hey, David, you had the credentials this whole time, so we're totally cool with making you king.
And we talked about the Jebusites saying, oh, even the blame. Let's try that again. The blind and the lame couldn't get in here. They were taunting him.
Yeah. And it was definitely interesting how they were kind of saying, we could put our weakest people and you would be defeated. And it was just like, David was like, I think not.
And so he took the city and then he
basically just
named it.
Oh yeah. So it was like the ultimate like, haha. And he was like, okay, so I took your city and now I'm going to name it after myself. So City of David, almost like in flashing lights kind of thing.
Right.
So it was definitely a big, I don't know, just kind of like a ha-ha to those people because they were like mocking him and taunting him. And he was just like, watch this.
And I think I was sharing with you, it was in this chapter that it stood out to me that it says David became more and more powerful because the Lord of Heaven's armies was with him.
Yes.
And that name referring to God as the Lord of Heaven's armies kind of jumped out at me a while ago. It's mentioned a lot in the Old Testament. And I just was sharing with you that I don't even have a concept or a grasp of what that truly means. I don't think we'll maybe ever really know until we get there, but there are things that exist in the unseen realm that I just have no knowledge of. And so, but it's a cool Lord of Heaven's armies. So that stood out to me.
Yep. And when you got that, you're golden.
And so then moving into 2 Samuel chapter 6, we have this interesting story of the Ark of the Covenant being moved. And this story, I was saying, we both express, causes just tension. It causes me tension inside. So what was your take on this story?
It was just kind of one of those things where, you have the Ark being moved and you think that they're going to protect it in any way they possibly can. And the bull like stutters or, like missteps. And so, what was Zah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Goes and tries to steady the Ark. And it's like, God's like, no, can't do that, and kills him. And so it was just kind of like, you and I were talking about like how if you're in a situation where you're kind of protecting something that's valuable or important and you see it's getting into danger, you're going to step forward.
Seems like it would almost be instinctual to reach out. Yeah.
And so it was just kind of like interesting how that was just the immediate response. But then I also made the comment about how maybe it was God saying, David, like there's protocols, there's steps that you need to take. There's, certain things you have to do in order to move these things. And you're not doing that. So
then we see the Ark being moved to the house of Obed-Edom. Mm-hmm. And then this guy gets blessed for the time that it's there.
Yeah.
And so then we talked about, it seems like then that is motivating to David then to go and take possession of the Ark again and continue to move it. And so then we have this interesting story of his wife, Michal, and David's dancing. And so what were your observations here?
It's kind of a weird dynamic because, she is the son or the daughter of Saul. And so it's almost as if because David's now king, maybe there's a little bit of animosity there, or jealousy or something. And so, she's going to be very critical of him no matter what. And then the ending where it says, and then she was never able to have children was just very odd to me. So,
and I was sharing with you that I kind of, just this morning when I was thinking about this, kind of brought home to me, David was worshiping. He wasn't really being mindful of who was watching or how he was being perceived. He was just kind of worshiping with abandon, it seems like to me. And there are those, I think, that will sometimes watch others worshiping and maybe not understand, that transaction. People worship in all different ways. And hopefully you feel free to worship however you feel compelled, whether that's raising your hands or whatever that might be. But I think there will possibly maybe always be some that might watch that very kind of overt action and maybe not understand. And I wondered if Michal maybe was a little jealous because did she not have that relationship? Yeah. She really didn't understand what was transacting there. So it's interesting. We can kind of, draw some conclusions. I don't think we're totally sure, but he did. I mentioned David, it seems like he claps back. He said, well, God elevated me above your father's family.
And I just pulled this up and it says, yes, and I will, and I am willing to look even more foolish than this. So it's definitely interesting because he's saying, like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to worship my Lord. I'm going to thank him for everything type of thing. And so
that's good.
Yeah.
So moving into the New Testament, the book of John, which I love.
I do too.
What were your observations about John chapter 13?
So one of the things that really stood out to me was John 13:34, where it says, "So now I am giving you a new commandment: love each other, just as I have loved you. You should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples." And that just really just resonated, and I just thought it was a beautiful passage because it's true. We all need to love each other, and we all need to, just kind of show that love.
There aren't any caveats mentioned there as far as, love each other if people agree with you.
Exactly.
Love each other if you're on the same side of the political spectrum. It just says love each other.
No matter what, and I just think that's beautiful because it's a reminder that, just because, you, like you said, think differently, whatever, love somebody,
That's
you know?
good.
And then I also thought it was kind of interesting where Simon Peter said, Lord, where are you going? And Jesus replied, you can't go with me now, but you will follow me later. And I just thought it was interesting because Peter's saying, basically, I want to come with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jesus is saying, okay, you can't go now, but you'll follow me later. And then he says that before the rooster crows in the morning, you will deny me 3 times.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting how he's saying, you will, you can't go with me now because you're going to deny me, but at the end, you'll follow me.
It kind of reminds me of an interaction between a small child and a parent, like, Dad, I want to come with you. And it's like, no, you're not quite ready for this yet. Just reading it, that's kind of how it struck me. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. So love each other. That's good. That's my takeaway from that chapter. It's really good.
Exactly.
John 14:1. I'm going to start with the first verse because it struck me. Jesus says, don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me. And what occurred to me, I was sharing with you, is that is like the best bedtime meditation right there when you're going to put your head on the pillow at the end of the day, and those things that tend to kind of maybe, gang up on us, or those thoughts that flood us at the end of the day. What do we have in store for us the next day, or what's going on in our lives that's causing us anxiety? Right here, just go to bed with that in mind. Don't let your hearts be troubled, Jesus is telling us. And he repeats that. He repeats that at other times as well. So I think he wanted us to take that in and take that to heart.
Oh yeah. And I love the fact that you say it's a great thing to go to bed saying, because it's just like, you got this.
Yeah.
What
observations did you have from this chapter?
It's kind of interesting all throughout John, it just kind of seems like Jesus is always having to almost like defend himself or like prove himself. And so he says, Thomas and him are talking, and Jesus says, if you had really known me, you would know who my Father is. From now on, you do know him and you have seen him. So it's almost as if like everybody's saying, but is he really is God really your dad? Is God really your father? And he's like, yeah, he is, because you know me, I'm doing everything that he wants me to do. So you have seen him, you have met him, and it's just, I feel bad because he's constantly having to, like repeat this.
Yes.
You know me, you know my Father.
Right.
You know my Father, you know me. Don't you know me? And so it's just, it's very interesting that, that this is just kind of like a reoccurring thing.
I was sharing with you one of my newer favorite verses that I've come across in the last year is from Hebrews 1, and it's the NLT version. And it says, the Son is the divine radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being. I just came across that passage and it just really just struck me. I know I wrote it down in my journal, but it backs up what we're reading here, that Jesus is saying, you know the Father, you know me, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
So interesting observation that what you're saying, it feels like he has to repeat that over and over again. So
yeah, it's almost as if he's thinking, I'm just a broken record.
Right. Anything else from that chapter that stood out to you?
I just the other thing that I highlighted was, have I been with you all this time, Philip, and yet you still don't know who I am? Anyone who has seen me has seen my Father. So why are you asking me to show him to you? So again, it just reiterates that, like, I'm telling you that this is who my Father is. By seeing me, you are seeing my Father. It's almost as if they need like the physical proof, as opposed to, just Jesus saying, no, I'm telling the truth.
Well, I'm gonna bump us ahead. I know you shared that you liked Proverbs, which I do as well, but I also love the Psalm. So I'm going to hit on the Psalm really quick, then I'm going to let you talk about the proverb. Psalm 119, I had written down, revive me by your word, encourage me with your word. And then I just took note of all the different ways his word is referred to as regulations and laws and commands, all these different ways. The end of it says, I will pursue your commands for you expand my understanding.
Love that.
And then we had Proverbs 15:31. Tell me what you took from this.
This actually kind of hit hit home because it talks about, if you listen to constructive criticism, you will be at home among the wise. And it's one of those where it's like, yeah, that's totally true, because then it talks about how if you reject discipline, you only harm yourself. But if you listen to corrections, you grow in understanding. And it's one of those where if you're doing, like in your job, if you're doing something wrong and you get the constructive criticism, and if you don't take it for what it is, to improve you, to make you more wise, you're going to fail, and you only harm yourself because you repeat a cycle. And so it was just one of those where I just thought it was something I could use in my daily life.
It's good.
Where it's like, okay, if somebody's giving me constructive criticism, let it be what it is to improve me. And I liked how you said earlier where you talked about, just taking it and then letting it sit in and just sink in, and, just let it kind of marinate.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh yeah, I guess you're right.
I don't know why it's hard initially. Sometimes it can just be hard. It always hurts your pride a little bit. I don't know if it's our egos are so big, but yes, there's wisdom in being able to receive that and letting it change you. So
I loved it. And it's, like I said, I'm going to use it on a daily.
That's good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, we covered a lot of ground.
Yes,
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next time.